Thank you ever so much, Shanise, for joining us to discuss what happens to people like us who have been diagnosed with cancer in the workplace. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I'd like to start with a question about how you got to know about your diagnosis before we go into what actually transpired, being a career woman.
Yeah, so in October of 2023, after a normal mammogram earlier that year, that's when I was diagnosed with stage one, grade three, HER2 negative invasive ductal carcinoma in my left breast, or what others might know it as triple negative breast cancer. My diagnosis came after I pursued genetic testing due to a family history and heavy menstrual cycles, which revealed I carried both the BRCA2 and PMS2 gene mutations. That was the testing that ultimately saved my life. 2 weeks after hearing those words that you have cancer, I started chemo. I went through 12 rounds, a double mastectomy, and then reconstructive surgery. I completed the treatment, but of course, the journey didn't end there. I faced physical pain, deep emotional exhaustion, workplace challenges, and I had to advocate for myself constantly, even when I could barely get out of bed. So, despite all of that, as women, we tend to just still show up, right? For our kids, our husband, work, and now in this work that we do, other survivors. And so,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yes.
That's good. You look wonderful, I must say.
Thank you so
When
much. I
when
beat myself
people
up for you, girl.
when people look at us, they don't know what we've been through. But like you said, rightly, we have to show up no matter what.
Yes,
God keep
yes.
God keeps us.
Yes, definitely. My story is about, survival, but more than that, it's about reclaiming dignity, purpose, and power in a system that often overlooks the most vulnerable.
Absolutely. So, what I wanted to find out was that, being a career woman, you were talking about the workplace and everything. How were you able to communicate your diagnosis to your employers?
So for me, I am a transparent person. And so I communicated my diagnosis directly to my manager after my biopsy confirmed the cancer. It was emotional, but I knew that being transparent was very important. I approached the conversation with honesty and asked for privacy while I processed everything with my family.
And their response?
And so her response was, being very supportive. She's always been a supportive leader. She also went through a cancer diagnosis, not the same as me, but in another part of her body. So she understood what I was going through. And she always told me to allow myself grace first and foremost, even when I was hard on myself and still trying to, navigate everything.
Absolutely. So, what I wanted to find out was that when you were going through treatment, did they
Mhm.
have to put particular things in place for you? Or do they have it as a kind of template for cancer patients? Or do they have to like do something especially for you?
So there, not that I know of, there was any template that was in place. I had to follow normal policies and protocols, such as completing leave of absence, going through the short-term disability process, and when I was ready to come back to work per my medical team discretion, I had workplace accommodations. And at that point, once I had those workplace accommodations, I spoke to a nurse case manager who asked me what my needs were. I was allowed to work from home. And I was also asked if I needed anything to support me at home. So, for example, I was able to get an ergonomic chair. I was able to get a setup for a standing desk. I was able to get a support mat so that when and if I stand, that my feet are supported and it's comfortable. So I feel like anything that I asked of them at the time was accommodated.
That's wonderful. And you know that you're one of the lucky ones because some others have not had it so, befitting, let us put it that way, and haven't been so lucky. Um, should I say that these are things that should be structured across board for all cancer patients?
I feel like there should be some type of structure. I know with cancer and with right now, some people don't really feel comfortable because when you're going through something as serious as cancer or any other major illness, in the workplace, you don't have to disclose that information. It's private. So if you go through the process and you work through your human resources department, they always advise you that you don't have to share anything with your leader or manager. So I don't know how easy it is to advocate for there to be specifics around cancer. Now, in my personal opinion, yes, because in certain organizations, they have specific areas designated to other things like autism and things like that. So having a department that is just for cancer would have been very helpful because those people would understand what the patient is going through and would be able to help navigate better as far as getting paperwork filled out, questions that need to be asked while you're going through your treatment and when you come back to work. Because right now, those are my current struggles, the after, not as much as the in the process of or during.
Absolutely. Survivorship is another realm. That's what I keep saying,
Mm-hmm.
because once you're going through the process, it's active. So you think of nothing else.
That's right.
Just trying to, hit those goals, go for
Right.
treatment and all that. But then when you come out of it and you're now trying to get yourself back, of course, we can never go back to normality. But
Mm-hmm.
we need those kind of structures, those steps to be able to get us to some kind of normalcy again.
Right.
These are things that are needed. I wanted to bring up stigma because I
Mm-hmm.
find out that stigma plays a very important role in the not just in the workplace by employers, but also um, co-workers. Because
That's right.
I speak to a lot of people who say, "Listen, we would have thought that our co-workers would have been much more, warmer and understanding, but you find out that a lot of them tended to move away." And
Right.
I'm like, okay, maybe move away because they felt kind of, what should I say, emotional about what you were going through, or move away in that they didn't want to, communicate or be friendly anymore. What's your take on that, please?
So for me, I feel like in and outside of the workplace, it's a similar reaction. Because people don't have relatability, it kind of silences them, right? They don't want to say the wrong thing. They don't know what to say. They can't relate. It's awkward in the workplace. Like for myself, some people avoided conversations altogether. As far as the actual workload, I don't know if there was an assumption that I couldn't contribute anymore because the work that I was doing was different than what they were doing, just because the survivorship aspect. I needed to have frequent breaks because I had extreme fatigue. Well, not had, but still do have extreme fatigue, and I have cognitive dysfunction. So in the role that I have to be very hands on and communicative on a daily basis with all levels of leadership. So things like that might come a little bit difficult to me. So I feel that, while well intentioned, I felt the dismissive nature of what I was experiencing physically and emotionally.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And how were you able to tackle that?
So again, I was very transparent. I made sure to have one-on-ones with all of my teammates when I returned back into the office the first time. I'm actually out on leave again. And so when I got back in, I just wanted to touch base with each of them individually to kind of check in with them, see how they were doing, what they were working on, where I can step back in. If I had, first, of course, I had a meeting with my leader to say, hey, I'm back. What assignments should I pick back up? Or is there anything new that I need to step into? And then navigating that and kind of weaving myself back into the team and letting them know that my dedication in being there and being back and just, continuing on with the relationship that we had in the past. And if anything were to derive on how I was feeling or anything, again, being very transparent, today is not a good day. I'm going to log off a little bit early today. And they're always very understanding.
And as regards, my emotional health, let's put it that way. I know that, I tended to be a bit sad, about all that happened. I had to make sure that my emotional health was in place. Now, did you need to seek emotional? I know, um, we have our workplace family and we have our family.
Right.
I know you had a fantastic support system at home, family, friends, and all that. But were you able to, aside your leaders, your team, were you able to have some kind of emotional intelligence, back to back discussions with them?
So while I was going through my cancer journey, I had all types and still continue to have all types of mental health support. I
Mm-hmm.
see a survivorship therapist that kind of helped me navigate through while I was going through treatments
Mm-hmm.
and after the survivorship. I have a couples therapist because along with this cancer diagnosis, depending on the individual. Like, so for myself, based on my gene mutation, I had to have all of my women parts removed. So I had a complete hysterectomy. With that came surgical menopause. So that also has its difficulties as well. So I have a relationship therapist that I speak to. I have a therapist that's just for medications because before going into or getting this diagnosis, I had anxiety. So I had increased anxiety, as anyone can imagine, after.
Yes.
So just ensuring that my mental health was where it needs to be. I had a cognitive therapist to help me learn how to retrain my brain. After chemotherapy, there are a lot of side effects that people might experience. For me, what some people might know as brain fog, or medically stated,
Hemobrain. Yeah.
yes, brain or cognitive dysfunction. That is
Yes.
something that I suffer with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now, honestly, I am still in another type of treatment for my mental health. It is called the IOP program. And what that program does is it helps us with coping skills and the best way to navigate survivorship after your cancer diagnosis. Well, for me, that's what it's for. It's in a group therapy setting, and everyone that's there has their own path or walk of life of what they're navigating. I use it to help me cope with everything that I have going on and will continue to have going on because, as I previously stated, I have BRCA2 and PMS2, which are gene mutations that I will have to monitor for the rest of my life. So, though I am cancer free, I
Mm-hmm.
am still going to be in the breast center and being around individuals who have a diagnosis and making sure that in the event that something does try to creep back in, I will catch that as well early.
Absolutely. I want to quote somebody had written to me to say that they were thinking that workplaces could improve in supporting employees dealing with cancer. Do you agree with this? And in what ways do you think, workspaces, employers could fill the cancer care gap as regards their, as regards patients that are facing cancer? What would you say to that? What do
Um,
you think? How do you think they could fill those gaps?
I feel like some leaders might need to be trained on compassionate communication, offering clear guidelines on accommodations and employee rights. A lot of the times, employees don't know that. Build wellness check ins into the culture. Most importantly, to treat people like us dealing with cancer like people and not just paperwork. That's where a lot of the issues could come in because people don't really understand what you're going through before,
Mm-hmm.
during, doctor. And so to them, it is just paperwork. But to you, you're fighting for your life, right? And so they don't understand that because everybody is touched by cancer, but if it doesn't impact you directly, either it be yourself or you're caregiving for somebody or somebody in your family, you really don't know the impact, especially in the workplace. There's a lot of assumption around when someone is done from treatment, they just snap back into normal life like how they were before. And as you previously stated, there is no life as it was before. This is now a new journey and a new walk in life that you have to face, navigating things that you've never had to navigate before.
Mm-hmm.
Changes, emotional, mental. Some people are still going through things after, like how I stated,
The
I
side
am.
effects are still there. I mean, I have lymphedema and I have to have a sleeve on. It hurts. These are things that actually affect our, contribution to work, whether at home, whether in the office or whatever. We're suffering from neuropathy as well. These are things that hurt us, but we have to, like you rightly said, show up and do what we have to do, because that also affects our mental health. We still have to be seen to be productive. We want to be productive and survive. That's what survivorship is all about. It's another realm, as I say, because it's one thing going tack, tack, tack. There's another, thing, coming out of it and then moving forward with what we have left, because really cancer has taken a lot from us, but with what we have left. Yeah.
And it's interesting you said the neuropathy thing because I just realized that I have neuropathy as well. And it's weird because my neuropathy has not, continued to grow. It is just in one finger in my left hand,
Oh boy.
into the middle of like in the thumb area. So like right
Mm-hmm.
here where the fluid is building up. And, I only noticed it because I usually wear a ring on that finger. And when I went to put the
Yes.
ring, I'm like, why is this ring? I was like, oh my gosh, now I'm getting fat in my hands, right? And so I
Yeah.
all types of doctors. And then I ended up going back to a breast surgeon and a plastic surgeon. And he actually specialized in neuropathy. And I
Mm-hmm.
had this test where they will put a needle with some fluid and then trace where your drainage, how it
Yes.
flows. Oh,
Yes.
it was up in a certain area. Because mine is so light, there's not really anything that they can do. So I do have to wear compression gloves as well. And so
Yes.
it can impact my typing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm doing, those are disabilities that you can't see. So that if organizations have areas of focus around neurodiversity and these disabilities you can't see, that would be an area where you would fit cancer into. I
Yes.
would urge people that when they fill out an application for work, a lot of times people don't like to
They'll leave out those things.
yes, and they don't like to document the disability. On that
Mm-hmm.
form, self-identify, it does say cancer on there. It says anxiety. It says a lot of different things, ADHD. If someone does not check that box to say that they have a disability, it's kind of hard for them to make a case. Let's say if they feel like they were being discriminated against because they
Mm-hmm.
were sick, because you did not disclose up front.
Mm-hmm.
So employer can fight the fact that they don't know if you're making this up because it is not something you can see, even if
Yes.
you have paperwork and such from your medical team. So it's always important to disclose so that that's on the back end. So if you need to have that as evidence later for something that might arise, that it's available to you.
Absolutely, you're so correct. Because these things, that we get called side effects, as I call them, like LTSEs, long-term, side effects, because they don't come immediately. They come years down the line. I never had neuropathy or lymphedema until about 4 or 5 years after I'd finished treatment. And I'm in my 7th year. So you can imagine these things build up even for the patient. The patient doesn't even realize that these things are happening until like you said, you couldn't wear your ring, that kind of thing. My long sleeve blouse couldn't go, the dress was fine, but I couldn't get my arm through the sleeve. So it's when you start tackling those kind of things that you remember that, oh my God,
Right.
these are things actually that have to be noted, so that, as you rightly said, when you're filling those forms, these are things that have to be mentioned, because it makes you anxious, it makes you depressed. You're spending more money on clothes than you should just because of, an arm, fitting or sleeve fitting, so to speak. So, yeah, those are very salient points that you have brought up, and I'm so happy we're talking about that. Now, before we leave, I would like to ask that, are there any particular resources that you could recommend to anybody that is watching our audience about, how to put themselves across to their employers and, team members about their positions and about what they're going through?
So yes, therapy is one that really helps. Your therapist can also advocate for you. Make sure to check out if your organization has an employee assistance program, so that you can get questions answered. Sometimes they have counselors that are on site that you can go and talk to while you are at work, or you can call and speak to anytime during the day, you or your caregiver, because let's not forget, our caregivers and our families also go through it with us. Oftentimes we forget about the caregiver experience and what our family members might also be experiencing with us, and when they go to work and things like that, because they're constantly thinking about you and your health. And so that was one thing, the therapy piece. For me, I used coloring as a mindfulness tool. It definitely helped me to clear my mind of what I was going through and help me to focus just on the task at hand. Sometimes while you're going through this journey, even if you're at work, when you're on break, you could bring a coloring book and color, because your mind is just racing, going all different directions, and you just need a mental break. Joining advocacy groups. For myself, I sit on the board for the American Cancer Society and Susan G. Komen, and then connecting with other survivors who do understand. While you might not have that support at work, you might be able to get that support outside of work, so that when you do go into work, you're already filled up and know who you can reach out to. You can text somebody and have a conversation, or,
Yeah.
Things like that. Me personally, I started the advocates table because I didn't want anyone else to go through this alone or be unheard. Space where survivors, caregivers, and advocates can access resources, community, and healing. So, with that being said, people need to know to advocate for themselves inside as well as outside of the workplace. You don't have any rights unless it's the rights that you know about.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. That's fantastic. So in your spare time, what is it that, besides coloring, what is it that you do?
So for right now, I'm just really focusing on my mental health, making sure that I am to keep going every day. It is a very hard and difficult journey. I fill up my cup with my advocacy work on the
Yeah.
side, doing things like this, speaking and educating the community on why it is important to, get early detection, and because it does save lives. I do also a lot of testimonies to help with policy and laws and bills being signed. So, with the current height of society right now, there's a lot of change that can impact everyone, even our cancer community, with the things that we're able to get to help us with our care and research. So those are things that I do. My call to action to me is easy. My life was spared, and I feel like I don't want to waste that. I want to make sure that I can help save another life. So those are the things, while I am trying to get my mental health together, those are the things that fill my cup. And that's what I do outside of coloring.
Fabulous. Thank you ever so much, Shanise,